Okay, picture this. The year is 2009. Summer just got into full swing and new shows are coming out on all of your favorite channels. You get back from day camp where your mom sent you because you needed to socialize more. You throw your bag down, slam down on the couch, and Cartoon Network has a new programming block? CN Real premiered on June 17th, 2009 and was Cartoon Network USA's attempt at keeping in line with the major trends of other children's networks such as Disney Channel and Nickelodeon. Disney Channel and Nickelodeon have heavily prioritized live action programming for the better half of 30 years, and Cartoon Network wanted in on that with the adaptation of CN Real to their services. Cartoon Network, as the name suggests, prioritized animated television during their daytime block, and during their nighttime block, Adult Swim didn't really have a lot of live action shows to choose from. Live action children's reality and game shows have always been a popular venture in the television industry and were heavily popularized during the 90s with Nickelodeon shows. Some of the examples of very popular Nick shows at the time were Nick Arcade. This was a trivia show that aired in 1992 where players were initiated through rounds of trivia and then had to play games that were designed by Nickelodeon to win control of the main avatar, Mikey. Interesting. Then you had shows like Double Dare and Legend of the Hidden Temple. These are extremely popular Nickelodeon shows that have been parodied since release and were still played back to back during blocks on Nickelodeon up until the mid-2000s. Disney Channel also found themselves in the game show and reality show biz early in the 2000s with the Disney Channel original games. Personally, this is one of the best things that has ever happened on national television. I think international television. I want to say that they were putting this everywhere on planet Earth. It was bigger than the Olympics. We need to bring back the Disney Channel original games. But I'm not here to talk about Nickelodeon or Disney Channel, so get those channels out of here. Go. Goodbye. I am here to talk about my old faithful Cartoon Network. Truth be told, I have extremely fond memories of Cartoon Network Real and all of the shows that aired during that fateful 2009 summer. I think child me saw that these shows were oriented by children for children, and it felt like they had the entire reins on the show. It didn't feel heavily manufactured or propagated by a network. But I found myself reminiscing and wondering about CN Real as a whole. Does it still hold up in 2022? And the short answer to my question is probably not. Not by a long shot. But nostalgia is one hell of a drug, isn't it? Looking online, I found the original air times for the block of CN Real. That was going to be Wednesday and Sunday afternoons and evenings. I would also like to formally comment on the idiocracy that is premiering new shows on Saturday nights. Children's programs are notorious for doing this, and I've always hated it, and I've been a big fat hater. Luckily, Cartoon Network shares the same sentiment that I do and switched over from having Saturdays and Wednesdays to exclusively Wednesday afternoon and night blocks for the rest of CN Real's run. I do feel like this block of programming would run way more frequently because I feel like I was seeing Destroy Build Destroy and Dude What Would Happen every single day after school. During CN Real's original premiere, Wednesday shows included Survive This and The Othersiders. Truth be told, I actually don't remember Survive This at all. I looked it up and found out that it was a Survivor style show for children and actually premiered in Canada through YTV. The original Saturday shows were Brain Rush and Destroy Build Destroy. Later during CN Real's runtime, they premiered shows Bobby Says and Dude What Would Happen. All of these shows had relatively cut and dry plots and were more family-friendly versions of shows like Ghost Hunters, Survivor, Fear Factor, and Mythbusters. So today I'm going to be talking about the most memorable shows to me and breaking them down and talking about why this might have been a reason why CN Real didn't last. The first thing I want to talk about is something that my little grubby 8-year-old hands hasn't let go of since the moment I laid eyes on it. And that is the show, The Othersiders. So The Othersiders initially ran from June 2009 to October 2009 and had 2 consecutive seasons. The show was about teen ghost hunters who went to some of the most haunted places in the United States without parental supervision. Or so I was led to believe as a child, due to editing, might I add. I wanted to be a part of The Othersiders so badly. I wanted to get geared up and go to these places to see if I could hear a little scratching noise on a recorder. I don't know who else was obsessive over ghost hunting shows as a child, but we all need to get together and talk about why we are the way that we are today. The other thing that 8-year-old me thought was so amazing about the show was the fact that they actually debunked some of these haunted places that other shows had been to, and it felt a little more realistic to my child brain. So the crew for The Othersiders included Riley, Casey, Zach, Sam, and Jack, aka the coolest group of people you will ever meet in your life. I also love how they opened every single episode with the most intense music your young brain had heard at the time, like the THX intro. Anyways, there is an episode that I vividly remember from my childhood, and that is the Queen Mary episode, because every ghost hunting show had to have an episode with the Queen Mary on it. I mean, even Shane Dawson got in on the action, and I don't want to talk about that. I ended up deciding the only way I could get through this retrospective was watching a specific episode of each of these shows, so I actually rewatched the entire Bloody Mary episode just so I could talk about it in this video. I remember the intro so vividly, and like all of their little logos and what fictionalized member role they had. Right off the bat, I was super confused because in the episode, they have everyone explaining their name, age, and like what they do, as if this is our first time meeting them. But looking back, they do this at the beginning of every single episode, as if we're meeting these characters for the very first time. In this episode and speedrunning through some of the other episodes, I couldn't help but notice the camera work in the show. They are zooming in on these poor children's faces at the most unflattering angles, at the most unflattering times, and it has to happen like every single cutscene for some reason. Also, now that I am a fully grown adult and I don't have suspension of disbelief in terms of children's shows anymore, I want to know who was actually driving the cars to all of these places. Because I kind of accepted that one of these 15-year-olds was driving all of these children around wherever, but no, seriously, who was driving them around? Look, I can understand the cliche of the night vision lens getting old very quickly. I was watching this on like 240p on my laptop, and it was the most excruciating pain I went through. I do not know why they needed to have the ghost vision, I guess they would call it, on in scenes where they weren't actively hunting ghosts. It was just a little silly. I guess one definitive conclusion I have on this show is a question, and that is, what was the budget for this show? I want to know why, how, where, what, when they were sending these children to go do what they were doing. In the end, honestly, it was super surreal to rewatch this episode, specifically because of how ingrained in my brain it was. It was kind of childhood trauma in a way. There were a lot of episodes of specific shows that scared the bejesus out of me, and this just happened to be one of them. I always had this fear of dying on a boat and becoming some haunted ghost girl as a kid. Don't know if anyone else had that fear, but I know there were a couple of us. The thing is, having a ghost hunting show made for children is not a bad idea. There are shows like Goosebumps, The Haunting Hour, Are You Afraid of the Dark that had really big child-based audiences and still spooked kids. But the formula for ghost hunting shows can get stale really quick. And as I like to say, it's not the ghost that makes the show, it's the host. Okay, One of the main reasons I remember the show Brain Rush is because of how bonkers I thought it was to host a game show on a roller coaster. I always remembered seeing the Brain Rush logo on my television too as a kid. It is the most basic, plain, boring logo ever. It has stayed ingrained in my brain since the moment I first saw this show. Not to mention, last year, I made the connection that Lamorne Morris was the host for this show. Yes, Winston from New Girl was the host for Brain Rush in 2009. So, Brain Rush. Let me explain the show to you. It takes place at Knott's Berry Farm. Winston from Lamorne will ask you questions for the chance to win cash prizes. I would also like to add a little sidebar here because One Direction blatantly stole this idea from Cartoon Network during their 2014 NBC special, Exhibit A.
Right, yeah. Okay, let's go. Which one team member? First word was cat. Hurry!
But I digress. I ended up rewatching the first episode of the show for this video, but literally all that happens is contestants get on this roller coaster and answer trivia questions. It's that plain and simple. My favorite part of this episode was all of the cutscenes of random people screaming. Just look at them go. Okay, maybe this was a problem with every CN Real show that aired at the time, but what was with the constant zoom cuts? There were zoom ins, there were zoom outs, like every 30 seconds. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. It hurt my eyes so much. Honestly, it makes way too much sense why this show only aired for a month and 2 days. This is a very boring idea as I look back on it. A very stale idea. The whole gag of the show is the premise, which is answering trivia questions on a roller coaster. And even then, playing that for 22 minutes an episode is so boring and a waste of time. I know there are so many of y'all that still quote destroy, build, destroy to this day with your friends. I am one of them. There is no shame in it. Oh, how such a legendary show has been buried deep in the crevices of my mind since 2009. I am so grateful that this show came out. Thanks to the Cartoon Network Wiki, I found out this was the longest running show in CN Real's history. It actually surpassed the network's block itself and didn't end until 2011. It had 4 seasons and 37 episodes, which is weird television math I don't want to get into. Once again, we were struck with another simple premise and one end goal: to win a prize for making a vehicle out of material that you destroyed. The winners of the show actually got to destroy the vehicle of the losing team. So that's why it's called Destroy, Build, Destroy, because you initially destroy the object. Then you build something with the object that you destroy, and if you win, you get to destroy the opposing team's vehicle. Why did I re-explain that again? Something weird I remember about the show was this Hunger Games-esque circle where all the contestants started out on before running to go destroy vehicles to make said new vehicle with. And honestly, the host of this show, the guy who was always in white looking like construction worker Jesus, was actually a musician. His name was Andrew W.K., and I looked this man up. He is Kat Dennings' significant other. Two Broke Girls Kat Dennings. What is with sitcoms and Cartoon Network Real and this weird symbiotic relationship? Anyways, Andrew had this weirdly memorable voice and intimidated the hell out of me as a child. He looked like he could and would kill you and then never tell anyone where he hid your body. Also, was this show produced by Michael Bay? How dangerous was this show? Why were there so many explosions? What was the waiver they were making these teenagers sign to be on this show? Why do I have so many valid concerns about every single show that CN Real has ever done? There was an episode of the show that will forever remain at the forefront of my brain, and that is the John Morrison versus The Miz episode. Cartoon Network has this weird obsession with bringing WWE stars to a lot of their animated content, so it was only fair that they brought it to their live action content. This episode felt like a 22-minute advert for young Cartoon Network fans to watch WWE, like most of the episodes did. But Destroy, Build, Destroy continues to feel like a fever dream to this day. And God, I would have loved to be on it. The last CN Real show I want to talk about is Dude, What Would Happen? They aired during the later half of the summer in 2009 and were the true Mythbusters of Cartoon Network. This show is probably the prime example of network execs dumbing down regular reality TV show ideas for the sake of children. This is a blatant ripoff of Mythbusters. There's no way to hide it. I've actually never been a big fan of television networks who do this. There are certain shows that are really good satire of reality TV culture, i.e. total drama. I think it tackles a lot of the issues that are relevant within reality TV shows even to this day, and it was made back in 2007. But there are shows that just kind of look at the concept and are like, it's already dumb, let's just make it dumber for the sake of children. And then you have a show with the attention span of a goldfish. Destroy, Build, Destroy was the only other successful CN Real show to surpass the life of CN Real, and it ended in September of 2011. I feel like I was seeing Destroy, Build, Destroy and Dude, What Would Happen every single day after school. Now everything makes sense. The plot follows three kind of silly, kind of goofy dudes who utilize the scientific method, I think, to see what would happen. All the episodes of the show kind of blurred together for me, and you are about to see why. The thing is, Jackson's voice automatically triggered this response in me from my childhood and like a defense mechanism. I had so many memories flooding back, as well as the intro and then this little like gray, bleak garage that they were always hanging out in. I wanted to hang out in there so bad because I was like, God, that's where all the cool kids hang out. It's literally probably a set in Los Angeles. And there I was, once again, jealous of a group of friends being able to do a bunch of unreasonably insane shit without parental supervision. So basically the first experiment is just them getting a big ass wind fan, turning it to the maximum, and then trying to shoot basket. No, seriously, that's the entire experiment. I'll let Jackson explain what initially happened.
Every time that we threw up a ball, it just went in the other direction. Man, that wind was evil.
Okay, so the rest of this specific experiment is that they changed their tactic and started pushing with the wind pattern, and there's this really cool action sequence of them turning on the fan, which is by far one of my favorite cinematic masterpieces of all time. And I think the experiment worked. I'm not entirely sure. And the rest of the episode follows the same formula. Like 8 times though. They go to and from the garage, talk about a potential experiment, fail the experiment, and then retry the experiment again and succeed. I could see why I would have liked Dude, What Would Happen when I was younger, as none of the experiments in the show surpassed the 4-minute mark, and so it is just a continuous cycle of experimentation. But rewatching it, I ended up hating it a lot. It was nauseating. I feel like this show tried to adapt to the quick pacing of animated television shows, which run from idea to idea and plot to plot very quickly, but in terms of myth busting. And that doesn't work. That wasn't cohesive enough for the show. Also, looking back on the show, all 3 of the main guys in the show, like the group of friends, they all feel very fake and like caricatures of actual teenagers. I don't know why Jackson is continuously yelling and has like the same pitch throughout the entire show. Like, he does not settle down. And that bit just gets really old quick, and the show gets really stale quick because of that repetitive nature over the course of 22 minutes per episode. I don't know how it became one of the most popular shows on CN Real, but it did. So, I was right. Cartoon Network did not hold up in 2022. But it also didn't hold up in 2009 during its culmination. But that's fine with me because I love trash TV. Even network execs were not the biggest fans of CN Real, feeling like it would try and drown out the current focus of the network, which was, might I add, cartoons. None of the shows ever broke a top 10 record for any television, and the program as a whole lasted for less than a year, with the inevitable failure of every concept in May of 2010. And those last two shows standing on CN Real were quickly washed away in 2011. The weird thing though was that Cartoon Network still tried to have some live action television shows post CN Real. I genuinely thought Hole in the Wall was a CN Real show, but it actually didn't premiere until a year after CN Real had been disbanded from Cartoon Network. There were also shows like Tower Prep and a show called Level Up, which I actually have never heard of before, so maybe I'll watch an episode of it for a video, who knows? I guess there is one question we can ask at the end of this video, and it was, what was the point? Why did I ramble about Cartoon Network Real for nearly 30 minutes? Did I just want to have an excuse to talk about something I love dearly from my past? Who knows? And at the end of the day, this overall stupid idea was extremely enjoyable for 8-year-old Danny, but it's abysmal in retrospect. And I think that's funny to show how we shift and we grow, and stuff that we looked on in our past can be absolutely atrocious upon rewatch. Some stuff still holds up though. I guess case in point, I'm just super depressed about all of the news that's been surrounding Cartoon Network, and I wanted to make a video talking about something I loved from Cartoon Network that might have not been appreciated at the time of release. And I mean, I grew up on Cartoon Network. I was 6 years old watching Inuyasha on Toonami at like 7 o'clock in the morning. I was pretending to be Sam from Totally Spies, and I was traumatized inevitably by episodes of Flapjack. But we have the memories left. That's all that matters, doesn't it? Thank you guys so much for watching, and look, the big guy, he's breathing down us creators' necks to get likes and comments. So if you would just do me a favor and leave a comment down below if you watched any of these shows from CN Real, or if you've never even heard of this before. Make sure to also subscribe and click on that notification bell for updates on new videos, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.